Superheroes exist in a world a lot like ours. While places like Wakanda or Madripoor might only exist on the big screen or the pages of the Marvel Comics, the center of the Marvel Universe is the very real New York. One of the ways to establish familiarity is when the characters refer to the shared pop culture, which can also lighten the mood. Here are some of the times that the MCU has made us laugh or relate to characters through pop culture references. Tony Stark has fostered a reputation for being hard to impress. That's easy when you're a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist. But it can backfire and cause someone to create an advanced idea mechanics and a fake Mandarin, while at other times, he just gets to call out someone slacking a little on the job. When Tony takes to his first tour of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s massive flying helicarrier and meets the newly assembled Avengers, Stark strides in and takes a quick assessment of the situation, including calling out a console jockey who had taken an unauthorized break to get in some Galaga. The line, improvised by Downey and later punched up with a visual punchline by director Joss Whedon, isn't just a reference to a classic video game, but a fitting one. Galaga comes from a time before video game endings, where you held off a seemingly endless wave of invaders, something the Avengers were literally just about to experience. The blockbuster franchise in its modern form really got its start when a couple of USC grads started turning out big production genre films that reshaped the culture. This hasn't only given us decades of Harrison Ford pointing intensely, but some great franchises that eventually led to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Indiana Jones gets 2 shoutouts in the MCU. The first comes from the swashbuckling Captain America: The First Avenger, when Johann Schmidt, better known as Red Skull, busts into a temple in Norway to grab the Tesseract. The thing has caused so much trouble, while quipping about the Fuhrer digging in the desert for trinkets, a sly reference to Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Jones raced Nazis to the Ark of the Covenant. There's another reference to that movie when Star-Lord steals the orb containing the Power Stone in the opening of Guardians of the Galaxy, imitating the stealing of the idol. Some people make a few passing references to popular culture as part of their character, like Abed from Community. Cool. While others use it as their primary source of problem solving. For the MCU, those problems are how to stop a 65-foot-tall man hitting people with an airplane, or how to get rid of a chatty space alien who's captured the Earth's foremost wizard. As the youngest Avenger, Peter Parker's Spider-Man has brought his unique approach to problem-solving to the old-timers, making up most of the squad, mostly with movies that were from their childhood. When Ant-Man went all Giant Man in Civil War, he used a reference from Empire Strikes Back as a way to take down the oversized Scott Lang. When Ebony Maw made off with Doctor Strange, the stowaway Peter Parker came up with a plan from the movie Alien, blowing the Maw into space. Monologue now, Squidward, ha! Speaking of Squidward, comic book adaptations have always struggled with how to deal with the aliases the characters have. What looks cool splashed across the page in a colorful word bubble might be a little bit more awkward when spoken, like watching a real person call themselves Ant-Man. Unless they're talking to Tony Stark. Stark has been a one-man naming machine for everyone he encounters, which is so steeped in pop culture, he might owe Peter Parker an apology. He referenced pulp hero Flash Gordon when meeting Star-Lord, SpongeBob SquarePants when he called Ebony Maw Squidward, and the underwear that was fun to wear, Underoos, during Captain America Civil War. The last one was a bit of a deep and convoluted cut, but what made Underoos the underwear that was fun to wear? Well, that's fun to say. Was their comic book tie-ins, where a young Spider-Man fan could wear Spider-Man thermal underwear. I'm wearing my Spider-Man underwear right now. Parker isn't the only Peter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe who relies on pop culture for problem solving. Even though Quill was abducted by Yondu and the Ravagers as a kid, he still made the best of his time on Earth. While most people from the time of cassettes deployed a collection of tools to maintain their precious playlists, with everything from head cleaners to the trusty number 2 pencil, Quill managed to keep the music playing with his mom's awesome mix for much longer than that love mix you sent your junior high crush. When Quill is crushing on Gamora, he tells her a legend about how people didn't dance until a great hero named Kevin Bacon removed the sticks from their butts, which, of course, is the movie Footloose. The Kevin Bacon one. No one remembers the other one. Footloose comes around again when Quill needs to distract Ronan with a dance-off. Footloose wasn't the only thing in Quill's bag of 80s references meant to melt the heart of the green-skinned warrior assassin Gamora. Earth Captain's got a thing for the green, ain't that right, Kirk? Anyway, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Quill tried to introduce Gamora to the concept of sexual tension the best way he knew how, through the granddaddy of will they won't they stories, Sam and Diane. Sam was a retired baseball player who owned a bar. Diane was a graduate student left by her fiancé. They couldn't be more different. So of course they were meant to get together. Well, until Shelley Long left for a film career. Regardless, Sam and Diane are an example of people who are meant to be together. One that Gamora doesn't get because, of course, she doesn't know what Cheers is. Do they have space sitcoms? Quill should watch some space sitcoms for sure. Gamora isn't the only one in Guardians that gets a lesson in earthly pop culture from Peter Quill. After saving the galaxy twice, the team has a patchwork understanding of the Earth and its culture thanks to Quill. When Thor tells the Guardians of the Avengers, Mantis assumes that Earth's mightiest hero, Kevin Bacon, is on the team. Sorry, Mantis. He's in the other Marvel franchise as a bad guy, Sebastian Shaw. Yondu may have been Peter Quill's abductor, but over the years he became fond of the young Earthling and became not his father, but perhaps his pappy. That fondness eventually alienated Yondu from his crew and left him with no one else but the Guardians of the Galaxy. As they gather in the bowels of Ego, the living planet, Yondu rides down on his Yakka arrow like a certain magical nanny. Yeah, Yondu, Mary Poppins is cool. Super cool. We'll miss you, big guy. Captain America may have started life as a Nazi-punching secret weapon from World War II, but it's that decision by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby to put Cap on ice and bring him back into the modern world that set the hero apart. Captain America was an ideal brought out of time. As a propaganda and rallying point for the US war effort in World War II, he represented the American ideal against the Axis powers. But revived in the turmoiled 60s, Captain America was forced to reconcile those ideals with the idea that America didn't always live up to them, or people who had lost track of right and wrong. Being a hero out of time has been a defining element of Captain America. One of the ways that the Winter Soldier, Cap's first post-Avengers adventure in the modern world, showed this was a list of pop culture references for him to catch up with. Can we have a movie of Cap just doing all of those things? I'd watch it. The MCU's Captain America's first real conflict with the modern world was in Captain America the Winter Soldier. In this film, where Cap finds out that not only is Nick Fury and Hydra building a giant network to take out threats before they manifest, something not very Captain America-y, but that the real engine behind it is the enemy he thought he defeated decades ago, Hydra. Unfortunately, you can't keep a bad Hydra down. Cap and Black Widow found that part when they went to a Cold War-era bunker housing a complex, if dated, computer. When trying to get at the computer's secrets, Widow asks if it would like to play a game. A nod to the Cold War hacker classic War Games. In that movie, a teenage hacker ends up hacking an AI in charge of America's nuclear arsenal by accessing its game menu, which asks, "Do you want to play a game?" We already know that not all pop culture references come from the computers of the screenwriters, and that sometimes it's the equally pop culture obsessed actors that slide in references. Tom Holland has proven so enthusiastic about the movies he's in that the filmmakers have to take measures to make sure he doesn't know too much. Lets his excitement get the better of him and lets something slip just a bit too soon. His passion isn't limited to just the MCU though, but for many things geek. That includes Doctor Who. One of the more popular people to play the role of the Doctor was David Tennant, who played the Purple Man in the Netflix series Jessica Jones. When it came time for Tennant to regenerate, his last line was, "I don't want to go," when Peter started to feel the effects of Thanos' snap. Those are the words he chose before turning to dust. Sometimes there's more to pop culture references than just remembering when a thing happened and mentioning it. Sometimes the references give a glimpse into how our world would react to the world that has gods of thunder, rage machines, and alien invasions. One of the ways to do that is to take a piece of pop culture that itself references pop culture. Ben & Jerry's ice cream is known not only for making really addictive ice cream, but also for its inventive flavors based on pop culture. When Bruce Banner returns to Earth after 2 years of exile, he's caught up on the world and finds out that Ben & Jerry's has flavors named after the Avengers. That includes Hulka Hulka Burning Fudge and Stark Raving Hazelnut. It turns out that the wizards who watch over the Sanctum in New York prefer Hunka Hunka Burning Fudge. We don't know what burning fudge means, but we're willing to try it. Quill's Walkman wasn't the only thing that made it with him into space. He was lucky enough to have a few distractions on hand, like a proper child of the 80s would. On top of that, picking up Quill isn't the only time space people have made their way to Earth. We get confirmation of the latter when Kraglin Obfinteri slides Quill a Zune after Ego busted his Walkman up, containing a whopping 300 songs. As you can tell, they come to Earth, just not very often. Besides, after 2012, visiting Earth got a lot trickier with the Avengers on the job, defending the planet with everything they got. Quill also managed to modify an old handheld football game into a tracking receiver, so that's pretty neat. Teen Groot was introduced to the futility of early 90s games with his addiction to the handheld Defender. No matter how many people you rescue, the invaders win, Groot. They always win. Sometimes the pop culture references aren't a part of the narrative, but instead a nod from the creators to either something they've enjoyed or to something they themselves were a part of. The latter becomes the case when a pair of TV directors got the call for the big job of directing Captain America's second solo film. They did such a good job with it, and Civil War, that when Joss Whedon bowed out of directing Avengers movies, the Russos took his place. Before becoming MCU powerhouses, they had another gig with a popular property with a dedicated fanbase as the directors for Arrested Development. As a nod to the show about a family who had everything and fell apart, in the collector's collection, there's a certain blue never nude in cut-off shorts. There are dozens of us! And during the climactic airport battle in Germany, the Bluth family stair car can be seen in the background. The MCU has created some stars, and it has attracted people who were already stars. One of the people who was a star long before joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Samuel L. Jackson. He's the kind of actor who makes any role he takes iconic. He's been a hitman, a bounty hunter, a Jedi, and of course, the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. What type of character hasn't he portrayed? He's in pretty much every movie, but as the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury has managed to have plans hidden in plans on top of other plans. When things went wrong in Winter Soldier, one of those plans was to let the world think he died. That's a David Banner move, Nick. On his tombstone was a line from perhaps his most iconic role prior to the MCU, Jules from Pulp Fiction. Jules was best known for quoting the Bible verse that began, "The path of the righteous man." Fury's tombstone wasn't the only nod to the career of the actor who plays him. Captain Marvel was introduced to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as having met Fury back in the 90s, before his eye patch and before he was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was more of an innocent time when Agent Coulson was a new trainee and not brought back from the dead or having a robot hand or temporarily hosting the Spirit of Vengeance as Ghost Rider. Man, Coulson has been through a lot. This movie was full of 90s references and nods, including Stan Lee practicing his lines for his cameo in Kevin Smith's Mallrats. And there was another nod to Jackson's iconic role, as the leader of the Skrulls confronts Fury and Danvers while casually drinking soda from a straw. It's reminiscent of the scene where Jules finishes his target's soda in Pulp Fiction. It's even the same kind of cup. Sometimes references or themes are thrown into a movie just because the people who make the movies are big fans themselves. We're all just fans making stuff for other fans, so we can all be fans together. Perhaps one of the biggest fandoms out there is Star Wars, one of the original blockbusters that created the possibility for something like a shared cinematic universe for comic books. While Kevin Feige is the head of Marvel Studios, he's also a bit of a Star Wars fan as well. One of the reoccurring elements in Star Wars is how much it hates hands. Luke loses his hand to his dad in Empire and returns the favor in Jedi. Even Samuel L. Jackson's Mace Windu lost a hand. The only Star Wars movie where someone didn't lose a hand was Phantom Menace. For Phase 2, Feige and company decided to do a tribute by having someone lose a hand in every movie. Some references aren't even references at all, but matters of convenience. Much of the sets from the original Twilight Zone were recycled sets from the Forbidden Planet and other sci-fi films of the time. The original Battlestar Galactica and its starship fights end up not only in the Buck Rogers TV series, but also in a cheesy sci-fi film. Sometimes props get reused. Harrison Ford's 55 Chevy in American Graffiti is used again in Two-Lane Blacktop. The US military is willing to lend its toys to filmmakers, but only if it's to depict the US military. Since S.H.I.E.L.D. only exists for Marvel, Marvel Studios was on their own when they needed a Harrier jet to fight the Hulk. They turned to the prop shed for True Lies that just so happened to have a Harrier jet prop they could use lying around. Convenient. Just the thing to make the target angry. Target is angry! Samuel L. Jackson isn't the only one with a whole catalog of iconic roles to make references to. Once upon a time, there was a Colonel Chester Phillips, who was just waiting for the OSS and Abraham Erskine to deliver him an army of super soldiers. Unfortunately for Colonel Phillips, Hydra saw to it that Steve Rogers was going to be the only one. For some reason, he sent his only super soldier on a USO war bond tour instead of to the front lines, but that problem corrected itself eventually. When Colonel Phillips found himself chasing down Red Skull's bomber in Schmidt's own hopped-up V-16, he found an extra boost Fast and the Furious style behind a shiny red button. Not unlike the button that is in the car from Men in Black that turned his average sedan into a flying car. The button was even marked with a K, a nod to his character's name in Men in Black. One of the running themes in Marvel movies dating all the way back to the Trail of the Incredible Hulk television series is the Stan Lee cameo. Stan the Man Lee was more than just a comic book creator. He was the consummate comic book enthusiast. And his affection for his creations was infectious. He loved comics and we loved him. He'll be sorely missed. He wasn't the only creator that made an appearance in the movies. Writer J. Michael Straczynski, perhaps best known for creating Babylon 5, also did a run for the mighty Thor, and can be seen testing his worth trying to lift Mjolnir in New Mexico. Legendary Thor scribe Walter Simonson, who gave us Frog Thor and Beta Ray Bill, as well as many other iconic Thor stories, can also be seen laughing it up at a party with Lady Sif. If only we were also invited to that party. Most fans get most of the references in a Marvel movie, and for the ones who don't, there's always another fan out there that'll let you in on what you missed. Maybe even a popular YouTube channel with charming narration, huh? Yeah, that's us. That's us. Anyway, sometimes with all the references and name drops coming in so fast, it can get overwhelming, especially for the casual fans who don't know who a Walter Simonson is. Never mind being able to pick him out in a party. When you miss a bunch of those references, it can get pretty exciting when you actually get one. Those people can relate to Captain America sitting with the Avengers as they toss around references to things like video games. Video games didn't even exist in Cap's time. But when Stark referred to the Chitauri as Loki's flying monkeys, that was one Cap actually got. We understand how that feels, Steve. Welcome to the present. That's just some of the times that the MCU has referenced popular culture in their films. What are your favorites? What would you put on this list? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, why not subscribe to CBR for all the latest content? And of course, thanks for watching.